So hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today. This is organized by the Global Action Partnership for EPR, and today we will be talking about lessons from 2 years of GAP for EPR Helpdesk service. So what worked, what could be improved, and what's next for this kind of EPR support. You've all read the event invitation, so that premise isn't new to you. My name is Noel Zielkowski, and I am representing the Prevent Waste Alliance today, an international think and do tank all about bringing the circular economy actors around the world together. And as you've probably guessed, I'm also facilitating this event today. So before we start, I would suggest we do some housekeeping. So please be aware that this event is recorded. That means if you open your video, you might be on video. At the same time, during the inputs, please mute yourself. Otherwise, we will mute you just to make sure that there are no disruptions for our speakers. And you can follow the chat for updates and also ask questions there. We very much want you to ask questions. Should something not work in the chat function, you can always direct the questions directly to me, and I will take them up during our Q&A session. This event will also feature one speaker who is going to make her input in Spanish. And for this, we have a translator, the wonderful Renata Machado. So to hear her, find the interpretation button below and then choose the language that you understand. So if you choose original audio, that means that there will be no interpretation. You will hear the speakers as they are. So if you speak English and Spanish, that would be an option for you. And then if you choose English, you will hear the Spanish input translated into English. Or it's also possible to follow in Spanish due to this. So if this is easier for you, there you go. If you have any questions regarding the technical setup, please use the chat and ask us. Without further ado, let's get into today's agenda. So we're currently in the welcoming part of this meeting, and you will hear, you heard all of the most important information, and right now we're going to move into the objectives of this event. So finding out what the help desk is aiming to do. And then we'll have some help desk spotlights. We will hear from beneficiaries who will share their experiences, and we will hear from our EPR expert pool who will share their lessons and their experiences with providing the support. And then we'll finish with a look into the future and with talking to you and asking you what you would expect and need from such EPR expert support. So let's find out what the help desk does and what the GAP for EPR stands for. And we will hear that by listening to Angelina Schreiner, who's an advisor on circular economy at the Deutsche Gesellschaft für internationale Zusammenarbeit, GIZ. With a background in international relations and public management, Angelina has over 5 years of experience on circular economy, including on the topics of reuse and extended producer responsibility. And on behalf of Prevent Waste Alliance, she coordinates the community as well as the help desk activities directly of the GAP for EPR. So Angelina, take it away.
Thank you very much, Noel, and welcome everyone. I'm really pleased to welcome you today to our GAP for EPR webinar. You might know the GAP for EPR was launched 2.5 years ago and has been implementing the help desk for 2 years now. And yeah, this is really an important milestone we would like to celebrate with you today and to share our insights and learnings. But before we start, and you can already see the slide, I'd like to give you a short overview on the GAP for EPR for those of you who do not know us yet. So OECD, UNEP, WWF, and GIZ have partnered to establish the Global Action Partnership for Extended Producer Responsibility, or in short, the GAP for EPR, hosted by Prevent Waste Alliance. And the partnership also receives circular economy support from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. And our vision is really, we aim to create a common understanding on EPR and provide practical technical support to countries in developing EPR, as well as to build a community of practice which facilitates the sharing of experiences and that provides a space for discussions and also for innovating EPR, contributing to relevant international processes. Just to highlight some strengths, this collaboration entails for interested stakeholders, this means simplified processes. So the GAP provides support services out of one hand. We also called ourselves in the beginning a one-stop shop for EPR. You have the access to peer learning, so the wisdom of the crowd is really in the center of our activities, and also access to international knowledge, so best practices from all over the world. And of course, we are also coordinating among implementing organizations, and that's really helpful when implementation is taking place on the ground, knowing what is already done by other partners, but also knowing what has been tested in other countries maybe. So yeah, there are several strengths, and this is a really fruitful collaboration among the partners and for our partners in the community. On the next slide, you can see that we are working on 3 pillars. Thanks, Noel. First of all, I mentioned knowledge is key. So we strive for common understanding on EPR. We have an extensive library, and we are hosting public events like this one today. Then the second one is that we bring together an international EPR community to really facilitate the sharing of best practices and lessons learned, but also to think ahead jointly and innovate EPR and to contribute to relevant international processes. And then last but not least, and the focus of our webinar today is, of course, the help desk. So we provide coordinated and tailored technical support that is really demand-driven and on-call technical support for policymakers, other relevant stakeholders in low and middle income countries for the operationalization of EPR. So let's look closer at the help desk and how does the help desk work in practice. So like I mentioned, it's really demand-driven and on-call technical support. This means it's a flexible tool, and support on short notice is possible, which is really relevant in some processes. We provide flexible support across waste streams. So initially we focus on plastics and packaging, but we quickly expanded also to WE and tires, etc. With limited resources available, the following activities could be supported in the past. You see 3 categories. First one is short-term engagements. Here we organize peer-to-peer learning sessions, community of practice meetings, and really quick expert support sessions. And this is facilitated or possible with our engaged Prevent members who do have expertise on EPR and who are engaged in a voluntary Gap for EPR expert pool. So thanks very much to all the Prevent members engaging here on a voluntary level. Then the second level is medium-term engagements or supports. This is consultancy on a concrete case or a set of questions. And this is currently supported by Cyclus and Öko Institute, running until May, so coming to an end now, and you will hear the colleagues later on. And this was funded by the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, BMZ, and this will be the main focus of today's session. Then also long-term support is possible when funding is available. In the past, we could support 2 pilot projects, one in Argentina with Sempre and one in Malaysia with Maria. And that is really thanks to UNEP and the donor Norwegian Retailers Environment Fund. And also here, if you're interested on the learnings of these 2 pilots that took place in 2024, there is a recording of the webinar available. Yes, so on the next slide, you see the overview of activities and the map where we supported in the past 2 years. First of all, you can see we supported globally, of course, with a focus on low and middle income countries. You can also see that we supported also on a regional level. For example, we had engagements with some Caribbean states or also with the Indian Ocean Commission. But of course, we also had many country-specific engagements. And on the next slide, you can see again the impacts and also the types of support. If you click next. So in total, in the past 2 years, we received 28 requests. In the beginning, the Gap for EPR and also the Helpdesk was not so known worldwide, but over time, the requests incoming received increased. And out of these 28, 18 could be supported. Additionally, we also, with the support of our experts, developed some knowledge products and public capacity building sessions. So this is on top of the 18. You might wonder what happened to the 10 that could not be supported. So either these were out of scope, for example, if they were not focusing on EPR, but rather general waste management, or sometimes also the interest on the partner side declined due to different factors. We supported in total organizations, and with that I mean policymakers, but also private sector organizations from 27 countries in actually 3 languages. This is English, French, and Spanish. And you can also see that we supported with different types of support. So first of all, we reviewed, for example, draft regulations. We had peer-to-peer learnings. We had Q&A sessions, really one-on-one consultative meetings with the experts where governments, policymakers, or PROs could ask their questions. But we also had open webinars or webinars for specific audiences. And now I will give you some examples. I will not, of course, present all the 18 requests that we supported, but just to give you an idea. On the next slide, you can see the support tasks on capacity building. And this is really from general introductory webinars to the public. Actually, that was answering questions that were raised during our launch event. Those questions were picked up and answered in a public webinar. But then, of course, also very country-specific support sessions. For example, here on the last one taking place in May right now is for PACPRO, the packaging PRO in Kenya. And for their staff, we are planning to support sessions or capacity building sessions, one on data, waste traceability and digital transformation, and one on human rights and due diligence and fair pay. So you can see there's a wide range from very general introduction to very specific topics. Then on the next slide, you can see that we also supported on very specific policy implementation, advisory. So just to give you an example here, we've supported the Ministry of Environment of Montenegro by reviewing their EPR draft law for waste tires. So the draft law was assessed and reviewed, and I think almost 30-page report was provided to the ministry with concrete suggestions for improvement. And on this policy and implementation advisory, we will also hear in a moment from the MOE in Cambodia. And then, last but not least, we also produced one knowledge product that you can see here. Many times the question came up, how can we also fund or finance waste management infrastructure through EPR systems? So this question was raised on a regular basis, and brought us to writing this paper that will be published soon. So stay tuned here. And last but not least, I mentioned it before, we also had peer-to-peer exchanges. So here you can see, for example, we had some expert interviews for Indonesian Recycling Association, where they had questions on developing EPR regulations in Indonesia, or also we supported a organization in Peru. They presented a concept for Peru's packaging EPR systems. And here, what we mean with peer-to-peer is really that our network, our community comes in, and experts can provide feedback, can provide examples from other contexts, etc. So this is just to give you a general overview on the activities of the past 2 years. And we will hear, of course, more now in the webinar. And with that, I wish you an interesting session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Angelina. I already gave everyone a little teaser of what's going to happen next. But now that we know how the help desk works, what the goals were and are, we will hear from someone who can give us a more detailed view and look into help desk support in practice. And for that, I will introduce our next speaker, who we're very excited to have with us today. So let me switch over to that slide again so everyone can see. So Mr. Laska currently serves as Director of Hazardous Substances Management in the General Directorate of Environmental Protection of the Ministry of Environment in Cambodia. He has many years of experience in hazardous chemical and waste management, and serves as the national focal point for international conventions, such as the Basel Convention on the Control of Transboundary Movements of Hazardous Waste and their Disposal, the Stockholm Convention on Persistent Organic Pollutants, and the Minamata Convention on Mercury, the Global Framework on Chemicals. Mr. Laska has been actively involved in various initiatives on improving chemical and hazardous waste management practice, which contributes to protecting public health and the environment. So for this part, I will give over. Mr. Laska, please take it away.
First of all, thank you for the kind introductions, and also thank you, for the invitations for me to join this webinar. And also thank you, the EPR, Angelina, for helping us in preparing a draft regulations on plastic packaging, and by sending the very good experts to help us in this area. So yeah. So for us, I mean, like what we have in place currently, we have the EPR on e-waste. Yes, so because when we look at the the trends of this such waste, as you may aware that, I mean, like, number of countries facing, like, around the world, like in particular developing country facing this controlling this waste, the same thing. And if you look at from the 2014 to 2025, of course this is based on the estimations in the country that like this such waste you generated a bit, increasing from 15,000 to 25,000. Of course, the estimation, but the actual number would be higher than this. Looking on this, these situations, we see that is very important to have the regulations in place. In particular, for of course, Cambodia kind of like coming new in terms of EPR, comparing to European country, and and also other country in the region. And what we see, we see EPR is only one tool that can help us in in managing such waste, which is one of the the major increasing in waste stream. So our stand, we see that this EPR is one of the good tool for us to do that. But of course, during the when we prepare that, of course we need, based on our main, that's why, like, we understand the importance of EPR. That's why we we put this concept into our main law that was adopted 2 years ago. It's called Code of Environment and Natural Resource in there. And yeah, following by based on that, the code, that's why we develop a broadcast is ministerial regulations on EPR. While we was developing that ministerial regulations, of course we look into what the other country have done, but of course based on our limited understanding on this issue, and we develop what we based on our situations, and then we have adopted just the ministry regulation when we developed a draft, and took us like a couple months to develop the e-waste EPR, and yes, we adopted last year. When we adopted, we have disseminated this to to the uh, the the relevant stakeholders to understand what the way forward for this for Cambodia in terms of e-waste management. Yes, I mean having the law is regulated is one thing, but when we look into the challenge that we face, based on, of course, it's not like I said earlier, it's not that the regulation was in place. It's not that long. It was like nearly a year. When the regulation was in place, of course, the big companies come to talk to us. What like need, what they need to do to to be compliant with this regulation. Yes, I mean for the big company, is not the challenging for us. We talk to them, and then they willing to participate. But as you may aware, the situation in developing countries as Cambodia is not the only one. The big company play important in distributing these equipment, and also collecting. We have the informal sectors, which is it difficult, and because and informal sector, and also we have a small, like a small distributor as well. And the thirdly is second-hand, importer, which is this is the main problem for us, because the most of the second-hand importers, when they import, they did not declare which brand they are using in I mean like they import in. So for the big company, it's like, okay, I imported the new one, and the quality is good. This is my brand. But then for the other brands, like I'm not using even the imported, but it's the brand is secondhand, but it's not their responsibility. So to this is again the challenge that we're facing, with implementation, because like I said, I mean the information and the data is fragmented. Like I said, the waste generation, actual waste generation, and also importation is not really consistent with each other. And second, of course, the ministry broadcast is kind of like it's got regulation, but it's not a law which is like like compulsory for the company to follow. But it's something that we look into it, and maybe we need to revise and move it to the compulsory. Yes, based on what we over the year that we had, like 1 year that we have experience with this. And we also see the plastic waste in packaging, also another problem. So we want to establish another, again, it's just like a testing the ministerial regulations to do that. But of course, with that, with this broadcast, with the help from the gap that have brought that have like provide us with a very good expert, like to help us in preparing the plastic packaging EPR. And we've seen that in the EPR regulation on e-waste, there's so many, you know, like point that mistakes in there. For example, like PRO that we didn't know that, you know, like when we prepare it for, you know, for the e-waste, that and PO, and then also others point that, you know, that the expert from the, you know, from the gap, you know, helping us you know, to develop this. And yes, I mean, like I said, it for the you know, the EPR for the packaging, you know, we will look into that, and then we will, of course, you know, slightly amend into the Cambodia context. But of course, the model we use that progress, and we use that the plastic, you know, packaging progress to amend the e-waste, you know, progress, in order to make sure that, you know, the implementation of this, you know, EPR would be you know, more effective in a way that to ensure the you know, the e-waste management would, you know, would be good, and to ensure the compliance from the uh, stakeholders. Next, I think. Yes, this one next, please. And as I said, I mean, data fragmentation and traceability and voluntary scheme, you know, this is something we need to move to the mandatory. But however, like I said, I mean, mandatory, how this is, we have to wait in between the new brands and also the second hands. How we gonna, like, importer, how we gonna, you know, like bridge this gap to you know, to ensure the smooth implementation. And another thing is concerning to the infrastructure as well. Of course, we have, for example, the big brands that come, you know, to pass, like, you know, to participate with us, to join implementing. But where they're gonna get this a product to when they collect it, yeah, and this something that we also, now we are working with the, you know, waste, you know, investors to set up a the, you know, the treatment plant, and as well, like, you know, to ensure the collections are in the, you know, like, to the collection, to make the collection of this waste, to ensure to help the big company to, you know, for the compliant. Next, please. Yes, I mean, I already mentioned. Sorry, like I jumped with this with this presentation. Of course, with the, you know, with the help from GIZ as well as the GAP, you know, when the broadcast was in place, we have you know, disseminated it by inviting number of important stakeholder, like importers and the, you know, the collectors and other relevant, you know, agency, and to join to understand the EPR. Like I said, the EPR is kind of new in Cambodia, but it's kind, you know, based on this, it's a dissemination, like this kind of workshop. It seems, it, you know, it seems like the many stakeholder really, you know, interested into it. But of course, it is not an easy thing, as you may aware. You have more experience than us. Then it need time, you know, for us, you know, to in, you know, to enhance the understanding of the importance of the EPR to the stakeholder, as well as the, you know, the other uh, relevant agency. Next, please. Yes, I mean, the for the collaboration, I think, you know, we are, like I said, I mean, with the help from the gaps, we have you know, drafting, and now in the final state, in the final phase for the packaging progress. And also based on that model, we're gonna be, you know, amend our, you know, broadcast on the e-waste. Next, please. Yes, I mean, the one of the thing that we get input, of course, like other, you know, is that we, as I said earlier, like we see the interesting of the stakeholder, you know, from having a public private, you know, you know, dialogues on EPR. But as I said, I mean, as the country a country where the second is allowed to be imported, it is one of the, our, like, it's going to be not easy because, as you may aware, for the importer of secondhand, they have a smalls and the big company, and for them, when they import it, the information that, at least, like I said, they put in the bill, in the declaration bill, is not always the same what is actually in the container. Next, please. Yes. So yes, it is all I have there. Thank you. I hope that, if you have any further questions, please let you know. Oh, one more thing I would like to, like to say for the future help, for us, it would be, again, for helping the, more public, like, and private stakeholder dialogues, and also help for the data traceability, with this, and then would be helpful, for us to, ensure or to further the improve the effectiveness of implementation of DPR. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lasker, for giving us this view into Cambodia in the EPR situation, as well as the support that you've received. We do have a little bit of time for questions. However, I did notice, I'm not sure whether people are able to use the chat. Luckily, in these kind of meetings, we do have the other option of raising your hand and saying something if that is not possible. If using the chat is not possible. So if you have any direct questions that just come up right now, feel free to let us know and ask your questions directly. We do also have an opportunity later again to ask questions. So if you need to think a little bit about it and then use the opportunity later, you can also do so. But if you do have a question right now to either Mr. Lasker or Angelina Schreiner, then you can use the opportunity right now to unmute yourself.
I think one. Yeah, I mean, like the one person have the question, maybe.
Hi there.
There you go.
Yeah, my question is twofold, really. One for the help desk. I'm starting a company. I'm pitching a project to the government of India to use blockchain, a dual blockchain architecture with the automated data entry. I know UNDP did a pilot with Armenia. I'd like to know more about any frontier tech initiatives. And if I know GAP only deals with the organizations and not like individuals. Is peer-to-peer is also organizational, or can individuals be contacted?
You're a little bit hard to understand. So you asked about the type of organizations that can be supported.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm guessing this will go to Angelina.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Indu, and great to hear that you're developing something for India on blockchain and IoT. I think that's really relevant and timely. Yeah, so the help desk is in general open to all countries in low and middle income countries. Governments for free, of course, also for organizations that are non-for-profits. It's open, free of charge, but still, if your organization, I don't know for who you work, if your organization is a private one, then we can still explore opportunities to connect you with our community, to peers, or if there are other ways to collaborate. So that's always possible. I also dropped you a message in the chat that you can reach out to us and then we can explore further.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Thank you so much. In general, if there's more people here that are thinking exactly that, do I reach out or do I not reach out? It's always better to just reach out and see if there are possibilities than to already think there aren't any. And you can also find a contact form on the Gap for EPR website. So if you go to Global Action Partnership for EPR online, you can contact the Gap for EPR directly there, also through the help desk. Thank you so much, both of you. Are there any more questions? Then please unmute yourself and quickly say, yes, I have a question.
There's one more.
Yeah. Can I come on?
Yes.
Please.
Yeah, thank you. I am Mustafa Jaju from the Gambia. I work with the Gambia Environmental Alliance as the public relations officer. The Alliance is the umbrella body of over 60 environment and climate organizations in the Gambia. So basically, my questions goes around e-waste in the Gambia. This is something that we have as a major challenge and is very limited if there is any that is working around collection of e-waste, and we have a lot of importation of second-hand materials into the country, which is a major challenge. And um, usually, I will say almost every household in the Gambia, you must find a second-hand material that is used there. So I don't know what advice or methodology that these experts could give to Gambians around the use of e-waste, and also what ways we can do to tackle some of these issues. So that would be really helpful if there is any. And I would also encourage if we can have such a sensitization for Gambians around some of these areas. That would really be helpful, because these are major challenges that we are facing in our country. Most of the televisions, even vehicles that we have in second-hand materials, refrigerators, and a lot more. So you go to places, you will find a lot of scrap vehicles being wasted at those areas, and also maybe plastic materials. So we have a whole lot of issues around that. So I would really want us to have a very honest advice around that, and also a motivation around that area that we could do as Gambians to mitigate some of these things.
Yes, thank you so much. So I guess the question would be here is what kind of very detailed and specific support can be given in terms of e-waste and in the Gambia. And I think the best course of action here would be to go to the website and to the help desk, where then an expert can take a look at your case and very much help you individually, or in case of regionally of your country, right? I don't know if Angelia, you have anything to add, or if that was pretty much the advice here.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if anyone, and here again, looking at the wisdom of the crowd, if anyone in the chat already has a concrete idea to support Mustafa, you can of course use the chat also and share experiences. But otherwise, yeah, Mustafa, please reach out and we can discuss this bilaterally.
Yes, thank you so much. So our time for questions here is over, but we do have some more, another Q&A slot later. So keep them in mind, so we can absolutely talk a little bit later as well. But so we've heard about the help desk in general, and what it does, what it can do, what it wants to do. And we've heard from a specific case and an expert in Cambodia. Now, let's flip the side a little bit and actually take a look at the people giving the advice, and in specific their learnings and their experiences with the help desk. So we will hear from Dr. Stefan Löhle, who is a managing director at Cyclos, working in national and international projects in the solid waste management and circular economy sector, who is experienced in advising on and developing policy schemes with a focus on EPR systems and waste treatment strategies. And then we will also hear from Inga Hilbert, who is a senior researcher at the Öko Institute in Germany, and is also working in the group Circular Economy and Global Supply Chains. So in this context, she advised on EPR systems in, oh, I'm sorry, my camera seems to have gone away. So now you can also see me. So Inga Hilbert also in this context advised on EPR systems in various projects and countries as part of the Gap for EPR expert pool. She was engaged in the capacity building for different country teams with a specific focus on Latin America. That being said, I will give over to our two experts.
Thank you, Noel. I guess, well, some of you already know us. Inga and I, we are going to share this presentation. So we were part of the expert pool in the Gap for EPR Helpdesk here, working then since 2.5 years now, coming to an end of May. I would say I directly give over to you, Inga, while you are doing the learnings and the lessons that we took from the support, and I will jump in then later for the further approach and the way forward. Okay, so see you in a minute.
Okay, yeah, welcome everyone also from my side. I'm glad to be here today to share the learnings and key lessons or key insights we got from the various consultations and activities Angelina just presented at the beginning of the webinar. Here on this slide, you see an overview of the main questions and topics which we got in these consultations. So these included the basic principles and setup of EPR systems, design and improvements of regulatory frameworks, but also the monitoring and enforcement, which is necessary to implement these systems. Questions were also raised regarding how do I set up registries for EPR systems, so what do I have to consider there? Also, one question which was frequently asked was for methodology. So how do I determine EPR fees? And how do I set collection and recycling rates correctly? And what should be taken into account there? Also, one question which was regularly asked was the inclusion of the informal sector. So how to make sure that people who are currently engaged in the collection of different waste streams are considered for the setup of EPR systems. And last, also the onboarding of producers was an aspect of high interest throughout the consultations we made. So then if you go to the next slide, I would like to provide an overview. What were the key learnings also from our side once we got this broad overview also of questions and challenges faced. And the first one, I would like to share that the interest in EPR is really booming at the moment. So there's a rapidly growing interest in EPR as a policy tool, and an increasing number of countries is exploring or also actively developing EPR systems. This often happens in the context of a broader circular economy strategy, also behind or in response to plastic pollution challenges which are faced in these countries, or which these countries are facing. And of course, these EPR boom can be regarded as a positive trend, but there's also certain risk that if this policy instrument is not set up correctly and implemented effectively, it could potentially not always result in the or lead to the intended results. And this is why, if you click one further, we would summarize that non-functioning EPR systems, if you could on the slides go one further, that non-functioning EPR systems lead to a risk of a growing disappointment with this policy tool. And this is why we also want to share insights on these slides, what needs to be considered to design EPR systems in a way they really lead to tangible impacts. So if you go to the next one, we also learned that there are remaining gaps on conceptual knowledge on EPR. So due to the EPR boom I just described, EPR also turned into a buzzword, which is maybe sometimes not really explained or put into context. So this could potentially cause a situation where for individuals they might fear to admit knowledge gaps in this field, and that key concepts of EPR systems may not be fully understood. So during our consultations, we found that this appears to be most relevant for very basic principles of EPR. So, for example, that EPR is linked to the polluter pay principles. The basic mechanisms are also realistic results, which can be achieved by EPR, or also the importance that the legal preconditions, so for example, the very clear definition of responsibilities or also scope of EPR system, that this is really the basis for a functioning EPR system. And we think that behind this background that there are sometimes these knowledge gaps, it's very good that the Gap for EPR Helpdesk provides flexible formats or support formats that can fill exactly also these knowledge gaps. But the above described situation where there are maybe some knowledge gap for the very basic, we sometimes found that we received very detailed and technical and specific questions on details of EPR systems, but throughout the consultation found out that the basic principles did not receive the same level of attention. And this is why, if you click one further, from our perspective, it's very important that EPR support requires the flexibility to jointly see or explore the support needs of different country teams, and possibly also reshape or even extend the scope of support throughout the process. So coming to the third insight or lesson we learned is that we want to highlight that science can support but not replace political decision making. So we found that there was a very high demand for science-based guidance on how to define and calculate collection targets or also EPR fees. And of course, generally, it's a very good approach to do this science-based, but the consultations and interactions we had sometimes indicated that such requests were partly rooted in the hope that this difficult political decision-making could be replaced by objective findings. So, of course, scientific approach can, and lessons learned from other countries can guide EPR development on promising setups or also how to avoid loopholes. But many aspects, such as setting mandatory collection and recycling targets, require sound balancing of different interests also and cannot be fully answered scientifically. So this is why if you click one more further, perfect, thank you, that EPR development requires informed political decision-making, and that persons and administrations in charge of EPR development also must have a clear political direction and also backing for this plan. If you go to the next slide, we also learned that the economic costs of EPR are partly overestimated. So in the process of developing EPR policies and system, many political decision makers come across a point where EPR obliged producers will most likely cover additional costs by increasing product prices. And this sometimes generates the fear that EPR policy may contribute to raising consumer expenses or also inflation. And it's very likely that this happens, but this view also neglects that the fact that waste management is always associated with costs. So without EPR, these costs must also be covered by citizens. So for example, through waste fees or taxes, or also indirect costs from waste related pollutions. So this is why we would like to highlight that EPR shifts societal costs to producers, who again recover part of these costs by slightly increasing their product prices. This also means that a person who consumes more also contributes more to waste finance, to finance waste management this way around. But here we want to highlight that typically the EPR costs per product unit are really rather small. And that the second perspective, that the costs are paid the one way or the other, should be kept in mind. So coming to the next one, we also found that the economic complexity of EPR is partly underestimated. So we found that policymakers sometimes underestimate the need for compliance monitoring and constant adjustments and improvements of the regulatory framework. So we found that it's very important that a level playing field for producers is enabled, and that loopholes need to be prevented, and a well-designed EPR system needs continuous monitoring. So yes, sometimes this complexity was underestimated, and for the long-term sustainability of EPR systems, it's important that the development considers these challenges and makes use of proven concepts and ongoing routines for monitoring. It may also help to use a phased introduction of EPR systems, starting with a rather small scope or limited scope, and to allow the system to grow over time before increasing complexity and ambition. And of course, it needs to be considered that adequate resources for this monitoring are foreseen. Typically, this monitoring is a role or is done by the government or a government-assigned body. So the last insight I would like to share that is that political needs often ask for larger solutions. So meaning that EPR systems cover a broad scope of products and also materials and waste types. And on the one side, of course, it's understandable that political decision makers aim for approaches that resolve as many challenges at once as possible. But on the other hand, as I just pointed out, as these systems are rather complex, it also includes the risk that a wider scope may lead to challenges and possible little tangible waste management improvements. So, yeah, therefore, this is also important to keep in mind, that with the increasing scope, of course, also complexity increases. And what we also found was that EPR is sometimes regarded as the most important policy tool for a circular economy. And while EPR is one important tool, it needs to be complemented by further measures in order to also reduce the amount of waste that is produced. So, as for example, by product design or also circular business models. So, if you go one further, we would like to highlight that a circular economy requires a bundle of well-designed measures, of which EPR is typically one important element. And just to maybe summarize that a little bit on the last slide regarding the lessons learned and key insights, yeah, we would like to conclude that the growing interest in EPR has a great potential, as it is the only tool that shifts the burden for waste management from society to producers and provides stable financing. But unrealistic expectations and limited understanding of EPR's complexity also risk poor outcomes and potential disappointment with this concept. So this is why overall, if you go one further, a targeted and tailor-made EPR support, as it was also done by the Gap for EPR Helpdesk, is of high importance to make the most of the current EPR boom. And this support should be able to cover very important conceptual fundamentals of EPR, but also providing support on more technical details or also the implementation details. And policymakers and partners should approach the topic holistically and do not only focus on EPR as a sole policy instrument. And with this, I would hand over to Stefan to some further insights into the consultation over the last 2.5 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Inga. Yes, touching upon the lessons learned just presented, implementation of extended producer responsibility is a multi-stakeholder and very complex system. So we also face some challenges and limitations, which are contextual, so due to the questions from the certain countries or specific entities we received, as well as specifically on the instrument as the GAP for EPR Helpdesk as it is. First of all, coming to the contextual challenges and limitations, well, the stakeholder coordination is complex and time intensive. We have this multi-actor engagement and different interests in the question itself or the addressees of the webinars. We face delayed consultations and we're limited then in the depth of the speed of the progress within this short advisory formats. As far as we also were requested to answer more detailed questions like target setting or financial modeling aspects, well, we faced then data gaps, which also came in as a limitation to our answer due to the fact that we do not have the basis for this. We found out that there's a different level of knowledge. This concerns mainly the addressed stakeholders, which makes it then difficult to discuss and present in a kind of an eye-to-eye level with each and every stakeholders being addressed in the webinars. And as a second aspect of this, we sometimes had the challenge that there was a kind of a misalignment between the requested support and the actual readiness to work on this question due to the fact that there were some foundational understanding misalignments in the EPR concepts. And we need to, well, first of all, go a step back and have a bit of more explaining and capacity session, first of all, to onboard each and every stakeholder being addressed. And the continuity of engagement is one of the major risk factor because several requests could not be sustained due to a lack of the follow-up or to any political changes we faced in the certain countries. So that's one of the major contextual limitation within this program. Coming to the next slide then, and the help desk specific limitations. Well, there's a structural limitation of the short-term support. While it is useful to have the GAP for EPR help desk as an initial guidance, it is not meant to accompany the implementation process as it is a long-term and long duration and needs a lot of time to implement an EPR system and to have a sound and sufficient solutions at the end. So the lack of follow-up funding and mechanisms risk then also the slowing down or halting of the EPR development after we came in with the specific webinars and support. And well, as it is, online formats have practical constraints. It is always better to be in person in a country and have this discussion eye to eye and to have also interim discussion on several aspects, and you come from one step to another when you are looking in each other's face. That's not always possible due to the limited budget and also the complexity in organizing these on-site missions, and this is one limitation that is then coming specifically with the help desk. Next slide, please. So the assessment of the help desk approach. As a result, the help desk provides direct access to expert knowledge in a complex and often confusing policy field, and it helps the stakeholders to navigate through this journey in terms of implementing an EPR system. The low barrier of access is one of the key strengths of this instrument. As you can see in the chat, go to the link, fill in the form, reach out to the prevent group, and you will receive an answer and get any support. And if it's then suitable to be answered over this instrument, you will be directed there directly. It is, or it was proved also as a learning to be most effective for small and very clearly defined requests. So that's the logic, right? The better the question is, the more specific is the answer, or it's easier also to give them specific support. That's clear. So sometimes the task for us was also, first of all, to really identify what is your request, or what do you really need, you know? And sometimes it was a bit different than initially requested. So the GAP for EPR core group members have a broad and international knowledge on EPR policies. So this is then the persons behind that you reach out with your requests, and as it is, well, the core identity of the Prevent Alliance itself, the GAP for EPR enables networking and peer-to-peer learning amongst the stakeholders with their interest and their requests. On the other side, we found, or the assessment comes to the result that the model is less suited for broader or very early stage requests. As said before, the help desk provides orientation, but cannot accompany the whole process of implementation of the EPR, of an extended producer responsibility system. It is highly depending on the stakeholders' engagements as well. That's very important. So please be aware, it is not only having a request, it's also in giving the ones that should answer to this as much as support and entry to relevant stakeholders and connections as possible in order to really answer the question on a high level as well. So the better and the more transparency and the more inclusion we have during this process, the better it is for the outcome. So that means that there is a high need for also a coordination from the beneficiary side. So it's not only one side to the other, it's a real interaction between the requester and the ones giving the answers. Coming to the sustainability and the outlook of the instrument, the sustainability of the results is really highly context dependent. There are many factors besides or left and right on this. Well, it's also a political journey, right? That can impact the further development of the EPR system in general, and these factors mostly lie outside of the control of the help desk and the instrument itself. It is a very good entry point for an effective initiating process in aligning understanding, in creating consents, to onboard and to align also different interests in this field, while the transition is requires definitely a more sustained engagement over a longer period. That's for sure. So it's not that everything is done after having the webinar. No, most of the time then the real work begins. Furthermore, we expect that you saw Angelina introduced it. There are still open requests, and we expect that demand of further increasing requests comes also for the future. So this to work on this as well, and as one result is that this strategic role of the help desk is filling an important niche by providing a rapid, flexible, and targeted expert input, but not that long-standing support in accompanying the complete process. And this is also one result, because sometimes it would be desirable to ensure that the support continues over a longer time, or a broader support after we found out and answered over the webinars first questions, and we found out there are upcoming or more questions in this field. And therefore, it is important to find ways to coordinate and to follow up with projects in this field to further support them the journey of the request towards extended producer responsibility. And I hope that was not too long, while knowing that several aspects are upcoming and presented as well. And yeah, happy to give it back to you, Noel.
Thank you so much, both of you, for these insights and the lessons that you've learned through this EPR support. I've seen that there have been a few questions now in the chat as well. So I just want to tell everyone that the chat is now working, which is wonderful, and our experts can directly reply to you through the chat. So feel free to use the chat to ask your questions directly like that. And now that we've heard about the lessons, we would of course like to talk a little bit more about the practical side of the support. So what has actually been done? And for that, we have another beneficiary of the GAP for EPR help desk. And I will just remind everyone, she will be holding her input in Spanish. So please, down below, click on interpretation and then on English if you don't understand Spanish, and then you'll be able to hear the interpretation. But let me introduce our expert here. Ninoska Ivan Flores Solares is a chemical engineer with over 20 years of experience in waste management and the circular economy. She's currently part of Swiss Contact Zero Waste program, where she promotes the implementation of EPR in the municipality of Oruro. She has experience in public-private partnerships and has participated in initiatives within the industrial sector, including the Cámara Nacional de Industrias Kiosco Verde platform, where she was the one who provided the technical support in structuring a collective management system within the framework of EPR. So, Ninoska, I will give over to you. Tienes la palabra.
Sí, muchas gracias, Noel, por la presentación.
Thank you very much, Noel, for the presentation and for my introduction.
Por favor, si lo pueden proyectar. Gracias.
If you can
Bueno, muy
share,
buenos días
please.
a
Oh, thank
todos.
you.
Mi
Good
nombre es,
morning to
buenos días, buenas
everyone.
tardes a todos. Mi
Good
nombre es
morning or
Manuela
good
Flores
afternoon, depending
y
on
hoy
where
quiero
you are.
compartir esta experiencia,
I would like to share
dado
my
que mi presentación
experience,
es sobre la
especially along my
responsabilidad que debe haber del
presentation
sector,
regarding the
avances, desafíos y
responsibility,
oportunidades
and
en Bolivia.
also that we have all
Esta experiencia también recoge
the
importantes
challenges,
aprendizajes
opportunities, and all
gracias a
the
la
lesson
colaboración
learned that we
estratégica
had
de
here
la
in
CAP
Bolivia. Thanks for the strategic
y
collaboration
del
that we
RUES,
had,
del Instituto
as
OCO
well
Institute,
from
y
the
también de
OCO
experiencias
Institute
nacionales,
that
¿no?
has
que han
helped
permitido
us a
enriquecer
lot, that had
em,
allowed us
la visión sobre
to
cómo podemos construir
understand
estos
the
sistemas
view,
red
the
más
way that we can
sostenibles,
build
más
up the
articulados y más
system with a more
escalables en el contexto
sustainable
boliviano.
way that we can
La
scale,
siguiente, por
especially in
favor.
the Bolivian context.
La siguiente lámina. Gracias. Bueno,
Thank
empezaremos por
you. I would
por el
like to
análisis de
start
datos, ¿no?
now,
En Bolivia se
basically
generan más
talking
de 8.000
about this
toneladas
analysis,
de
because in
residuos,
Bolivia we see that
pero ahí
we
está el
have
dato clave, tenemos una
80,285 tons
brecha
per day
estructural
of residue of
entre
waste.
lo
So
recuperado por el
this is the
gobierno
model that we have
municipal,
to understand,
por la
because we have the
municipalidad, que es la
municipal
recuperación formal,
government,
que solo llega al
and it's
1.2%
important to see
frente al
that this is a
27, casi
large number
27% del
considering of
aprovechamiento
almost
industrial y de los compradores, ¿no?
27%
De este material
approximately
que es
of
valorado en
this
el mercado.
material that
Esta
the
cifra
industries
es
are trying
importante
to
porque
use.
ya
It's
nos
important to
muestra una cadena de
understand
valor
that
ya
it's
instalada
a
que ha
low
crecido en un
amount,
118% en la
but it
última década.
has increased.
Entonces, ahí el objetivo
So
técnico
we
de
see
la
that the
red
main technical
es justamente
objective for us
formatizar
is
estos flujos
exactly to
a
try
través de
to
esquemas de
formalize
trazabilidad,
some
que esto
groups,
puede permitir el cumplimiento
especially
normativo.
to try to accomplish to the
Aprovechando esta
regulations
capacidad
that we
instalada
have.
del sector
So
privado,
we
¿no?
have to take advantage of the private
EPR es el
sector,
puente necesario
and we
para
see that
justamente
EPR is
permitir que
exactly
este
the bridge
27%
that we need
crezca
in order to
e
allow that
inclusive
this
se pueda absorber
26.9,
este flujo que
almost
los municipios pierden
27%
en los
can
locales.
increase, because we know that we
Siguiente,
have
por
lots
favor.
of waste still. The next slide, please.
El marco normativo. El marco
So basically,
normativo
we
en
have
Bolivia
the
se
legal
ha
aspects
consolidado a través de la
now.
Ley
I know that,
755, la Ley
I
de
believe
Gestión
that we
Integral de
have
Residuos,
already
que establece los
consolidated.
principios de la
We have the
economía
law
circular.
number
Y más
755, which
recientemente,
is
a través del
basically this
reglamento
integral
EPR,
management
aprobado
of
mediante
these
resolución
residues, all the
ministerial en
waste that
agosto del
establishes
2024.
all the circular economy.
Esta
The
última
other
normativa
regulation
genera
is from
obligaciones
August
claras para
2024,
productores e
which
importadores,
offers these
centradas
clear
en el registro de
obligations for
sistemas, metas de
producers and people
recolección,
that are
trazabilidad,
importing
planes de
the
cumplimiento
products,
obligatorios.
and the obligations that we have regarding the
Bueno, no es
registration in the
solamente
system. And
este
also,
reglamento no
we
exige
have to
solamente la
understand
recolección,
that
es
is not just
lo
something that
que el
exists
principal
there in
objetivo
the
es que
world,
estos
but the
residuos
main
retornen a
objective
procesos de
that
valorización, ¿no? Donde se van a
these
establecer metas
processes have to
progresivas
be value, where we
para el
have to
sector
establish
industrial por cada
there
tipo
the
de residuo
industrial
priorizado.
sector
Siguiente,
targets
por
and the
favor.
main objectives. Next slide, please.
¿Dónde se enfoca la EPR?
So what is the main
Tenemos
focus
flujos
of
priorizados
the
como
EPR? We
los
know that we
plásticos, el
have
PET,
the
bolsas de
plastic,
polietileno,
PET,
los
for
residuos de
example, the
aparatos
polyethylene
eléctricos y
bags.
electrónicos,
We know all the
pilas y
electronic
baterías,
stuff.
bases
We have the
desabastecidas, neumáticos
batteries.
fuera de
We
uso,
know that we
chatarra
have the
y también
tires
está en
and
evaluación la
other things that
incorporación de
we have
agentes
there that
usados.
we are
Estos
evaluating
han
in our
sido,
society.
bueno, estos
So
residuos
everything
requieren
we believe
diseños
that these
energéticos
residues, the waste,
diferenciados, ¿no?
we
Mientras que
need
los
to
envases
differentiate all of
PET
them,
tienen un
especially
reto en
because
volumen y la
we
capilaridad de
have
la
the
recolección,
they
los
vary
residuos
in
como los
volume,
RAEs, las pilas y
and we
baterías,
know
bueno,
that
tienen
batteries, for
un
example,
desafío en
is
la
a
gestión de
very
estos componentes
delicate
peligrosos y
management,
la
especially because
recuperación
we're
que
talking
requiere
about
protocolos de
the
manejo
dangerous
especializados.
products, and we
Siguiente,
need
por favor.
to have specialized management. Next slide, please.
Dentro de los residuos prioritarios
So
tenemos
among
flujos
the
que son
priority
de madurez
residue
avanzada,
waste,
como,
we
por,
know
como es el
that we
caso de
have
las
to
botellas
understand
PET,
that we have different
que en este
kinds,
caso
especially
dominan el
when we talk about the
73% de
PET
los
bottles,
residuos
because we have
reciclables,
the plastics,
y
and we
las
know
baterías de plomo
that
ácido,
the
¿no? Que ya
batteries as
cuentan con
well,
una
especially
amplia red de
because
limpiadores y
they
recolectores de
count
base, con
the
este modelo
collectors, and with this
de
model,
logística inversa.
of logistics that we have. Nowadays, last year, we see that we managed to get over 90,000 of the batteries that they have already been used. So we know that we have a significant number of electrical devices. We understand that we reach 73,000 per year regarding the electronics ones. And it's important to try to work on this recuperation that we have of the critical metals, that we can try to recover them. And we also understand that regarding the tires, for example, it represents 3.8 million units per year. So it's important to work on that. And we see that with the batteries, they represent a very critical environmental risk. Next slide. The human capital is a system that in Bolivia we know that is cannot be efficient if we cannot count with this good system. We have many people that go out in the streets to collect the waste and know that we are reaching 15,000 people there, which is a reasonable number of people that are there recycling. And the idea is to create a job, a proper work in a formal way for these people that they are representing their role in this chain, especially because we consider the logistic structure. If we analyze all these numbers, we understand that this amount is from 1 to 1.5 tons per month per collector. So the capacity of recovery goes over the 15,000 tons. So there is a technical perspective to develop this very well model, especially because we have to take advantage of these actors that play a very important role of this process. So this is just for you to understand. It's not something new. We see that we did not start in 2026. We started in 2015 with the law 755. And after we have that per sector from 2016 to 2023. And then in 2024, there was the general regulation, which was approved. And in 2025, there was a registration of the systems, and we see that was there from collective and individual. The individual was until May 2025. And the next step is the implementation of the new programs, because we understand that based on this documentation, we can master the technical aspects, covering, for example, all the parts that we need, and the interested people can participate in a way because we know that we have the maturity level, and it's important to understand the capacity of each sector. This is why when we understand that, we can set these objectives and also to align the recovery strategies. Once it is approved, basically this strategy, we know that 6 months for the programs is a reasonable time, but we are working now in a phase that we are going to try to work in these technical details. We in Bolivia, we understand that we are facing this delicate moment because they are exchanging the key people there in considering the political aspects. In this context, for example, we have the CNI, which deals exactly with the industries here in our country, and they are there trying to motivate to get the pioneer companies to enroll themselves to try to work with polyethylene, plastics, electronic waste, and also the tires. So the main pillar is exactly that they have is from 2016. They is trying to make this bond of the management companies to try to have some people authorized by the government to work with the waste. And it's important to understand what the companies intend, how they are willing to work, which kind of model they're going to be operating, and we can try to get to scale up to a collective model of management. So the idea is to take advantage of the capacities and try to focus on an articulator hub, basically to try to integrate and reinforce the players that we have already in the market, as well as to work in the logistics and also collective campaigns in Bolivia. I believe that it's important to adopt this model because we have to work in a way, in a more factorable way, especially because we have to reinforce the coordination in multi-sector levels to understand that we have to implement that in a more flexible way and financial sustainable. These were the main arguments. Based on this system, we can coordinate many operators and we can guarantee better results, validated information, and also to be the owner of the entire chain. Next slide, please.
Bueno, entonces es ahí donde hemos, en esta conformación y
This
validación
slide
del modelo
shows
para
basically
el
the
sistema de gestión
validation
colectivo, nos
of
hemos
this
contactado
model,
con la
especially when we
GAP de
talk about
Helpdesk
that in a
justamente para
collective
solicitar esta
way.
asistencia
In
técnica
order to
especializada
request the
a través
technical
de dos sesiones
specialized
de asesoramiento.
assistance,
La
it's important
primera,
to
una
have
sesión de
the sessions.
diagnóstico.
So
La que se ha
basically,
dado
we
toda la
thought about
información
the
de cómo
virtual
opera,
technical
cómo es que
session in order to
funcionaba
provide
la
all these
plataforma y
technical
lo que se pretendía
approach, the
también
way that
para un
the
sistema de
government has
gestión
that in their
colectivo. Y
platforms,
una
and
segunda
also to
sesión
have
ya de
that.
retroalimentación
So we have this kind of
con
sessions
el apoyo de
together in
expertos
collaboration
como
with
Lucía Gascón
specialists
e Inga
such
Hilder.
as Lucia Gascon,
Hemos podido
and it
establecer,
was possible for us to
bueno, se
establish
ha podido,
then
digamos, recibir esta
to
orientación sobre
receive these
fijación de
guides,
tarifas,
especially
monitoreo de flujo de
regarding the
masa y
taxes, the
gobernanza.
costs, and all the
Siguiente, por favor.
governance aspects in collaboration with OCO
Los
Institute.
principales
Next slide,
lineamientos
please.
clave son
The
estos tres
main
pilares:
key
ecotarifas,
pillars that
una
I would like to
orientación
say
inicial
is
sobre la
the
estructura
eco
de
tariffs,
costos
for
compartidos y
example, that we
sostenibilidad
have to
financiera del
understand
sistema,
the costs, for
flujo
example,
de
this
masa, las
structure,
perspectivas sobre
and
protocolos
also
de
the financial
verificación para
aspects of
asegurar que
this
cada
system.
kilogramo recuperado sea
The
auditado
other
correctamente. Y
mass
también un
flow
punto
that we have is to
importante es
understand
el
these perspectives that
máximo,
we
el
have for the
análisis
protocol
del modelo de
verification there,
reciclame,
and
pero
also the
quizás servido como
model
una
that we
referencia
can
regional
work there for this
adaptada a la
analysis,
realidad
that
del
is the
tiempo.
benchmark, which is adapted to the reality that we have
Siguiente,
here
por favor.
in Bolivia. Next slide, please. Next
Siguiente, por
slide,
favor.
please.
Bueno, la contribución de la GAP
So the
EPR para el
contribution that we
desarrollo,
have from GAP is to
justamente
develop
del
the EPR
modelo,
exactly
del
because
sistema
we
de
have to
gestión.
understand that we have this
Ha tenido
management
uno de
system,
los lineamientos más
and
importantes ha sido la
we know
gradualidad,
that
la
we have the
gradualidad
technical
operativa, la recomendación experta
operation
sobre no
model
saturar
that
el
we have,
sistema al
especially
inicio,
because
el
this
fortalecimiento técnico se
understanding
enfocó en
is to
definir
reinforce the
alcances geográficos y
technical
flujos
backup,
específicos.
especially
Por
considering
otro
the
lado,
different
también el tema de
population and
ecotarifas,
differences
de
geographically
que establecer un
speaking.
cobro que no
It's
sea al azar,
important to have
cómo
different
estructurar
methodologies there,
tarifas
the
que
application of
reflejen
this
realmente
methodology
los
there
costes
specific for
reales de
us,
recogida
and
y
also to
valorización,
understand
evitar el
the eco
parasitismo.
tariffs for
Lo
uh,
mismo con
to work
estandarización
with
de
the
datos y
real costs, and
reportes,
also to align
identificar brechas
strategies
en el
to
mercado.
prevent the free
Bueno,
riding
y
system, for
también
example,
el punto
with the
estabilización más crítico, la
volunteering
verificación del flujo
systems.
de
We
masas.
understand that this
Estos
financial
son aspectos
viability is
que han
very
sido muy
delicate, but we
importantes
have to
y de gran
understand
valor
that these
para
aspects
poder
represent
consolidar el
a
sistema
great
y el modelo
importance,
operativo
especially in the
para el
consolidation, in the
próximo año.
operative model for us here in Bolivia.
Y bueno, y un punto alto también
Well, another point is
esta
this comparative aspect that we have to understand, a comparison between Bolivia versus Peru, because we understand that Peru can share important insights. Next slide, please.
Bueno, aunque yo ya no formo parte de la estructura de la Cámara, es imperativo
I am not,
y
to be part of the structure, therefore this participation. I understand that this participation for me has been very significant, especially to understand that there is a relevant model of system, and we are trying to consolidate the model. The idea that we have the program there, we are receiving the support of one consultant that has already been working with this structuration of this model, and we count on the support from GAP, and as well we could attend the session, which was very helpful for us in order to consolidate this model to accomplish the proposal done. We understand that the sessions were not just informative sessions, but the sessions, they were very important, very productive. And I would like to say thank you, and I would like to invite you all, especially in order to share new challenges, especially in these cases that we understand that we will have the next session. It's important to count on your participation, to count with you. Next session, thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for this moment, which was very pleasant for me. And thank you for the support. And I would like to say thank you for OCO Institute, that represents a great value for all of us here. Well, these are my data, as you can see on the screen. There is my email, there is my telephone number. In case you want, you can reach me. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, Ninoska.
Thank you very much, Ninoska.
Thank you so much. And thank you for this great overview of what happened, was the situation and what happened during the Helpdesk support. Now, if anyone has any questions, please use the chat, and our experts will be able to reply to you directly. I also, at this point, want to say thank you, Renata, for the great translation for everyone who was listening in English. Now, if you have 5 more minutes for us, we do have a little bit of a view into the future that we would love to finish this event with you with. So we're just gonna do this. The Q&A is in the chat, so please do use the chat. We will hear from the head of Secretariat of Prevent. You might know him, Alexander Bataiga, who is, as I said, he's leading the Secretariat of the Prevent Waste Alliance, and is also a longtime expert in the field of circular economy, and especially also in the field of e-waste. So Alexander, if you would like to just give us a quick outlook into the future of the GAP for EPR.
So thanks a lot, Noel, and of course all participants. I will be very quick because we're already almost over time. So maybe go to the next slide. So we've heard today in the webinar quite a lot about demand for EPR is booming. We're kind of on the, let's say, supply side in regards to support. And we're happy, let's say, that we can continue it. Having said that, it's not the same, let's say, scope we had before, but we're looking forward to let's say, add funding to that. So there are some funds available for the help desk. Of course, the short-term expert sessions with our voluntary experts, they will continue. There is as well the possibility of peer learning amongst people who are in, let's say, process of implementing EPR policies, either on the side of the government or on the side of PROs. And of course, we will continue with the community exchanges, but the division of the gap for EPR in general, but as well for the help desk is broader. There's a big if in front of it. That's if funds are available. Of course, we would like to expand what we've done there to other low and middle income countries. There can be as well more flexibility regarding the material flows we look at. Of course, we've worked as well on electronics, but possibly textiles could be as well another field to look at. We can envision as well to follow up on the already concluded assignments. And of course, there was mentioned that some of the basics they are as well in demand. We could do a lot of work on those as well. So we go to the next slide. That's a very quick, I would rather say, how-to for the help desk. So those who are in the call might already know, but really define your request before you reach out. It helps us greatly in identifying what's the right access point, and short contextual background on specific questions, and really what are the challenges you want to tackle with support of the help desk, and what is the concrete objective. So the more concrete the request is, the more tailor-made the response can be. And this was as well one of the recommendations of our consultants. And then we have as well some questions that needs to be addressed. That what is the level of actual knowledge on EPR, and whether you want to have a refresher on that one. So all these let's say question requests can be raised via our website. So just use the QR code or write an email. I promise to be very quick. I think I delivered that, and we'll hand over to Noelle to wrap up the webinar.
Thank you so much. I do enjoy short inputs, so thank you. But I'm sure a lot of you now have quite a few ideas, thoughts, expectations running through your minds. And you can voice them to us, of course, either through the chat or also after this webinar, whether it's via email, via our contact form, even via LinkedIn, if you see a post pertaining to the gap for EPR. And some of the feedback that we would love to hear from you is, what would you need from the gap for EPR? What would you expect? What would you need from the help desk? Or do you even have any recommendations for future activities? We've already had a few today that have used the chat to give us their recommendations. So feel free either to use the chat and we'll be able to take a look at it, or to share your thoughts with us after this webinar, as well, as we would love to hear from you, of course. And then with that, I would like to thank everyone who joined today, and also every speaker who joined us and shared their expertise and shared their knowledge with us today. Thank you so much for joining. We will, of course, make the recording as well as the presentation available for you, so you will be able to read through everything again. And if you have any questions then towards the content, you can also always reach out. That is not a problem at all. So at this point, I would like to say thank you for your attention, and you can connect with us on, as you can see, our website, our contact email address, or any other source that you might find, like LinkedIn, or through the Prevent Waste Alliance as well, as we connect people with who they need to be connected to. Right. Thank you so much. And with that, I will close today's event and wish you all a great rest of the day. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Noelle. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.